As much as I knew I wanted to change, I felt like, well, if I change, all of a sudden I'm going to be lumped into that bucket and I'm going to get a stigma, I'm going to get a label, I'm going to have
preconceived idea of what we have about the way life should be and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And
in addition to that, alcohol induces a lot of the release of stress hormones in our body. So we release cortisol, adrenaline, and dynorphin when we drink. Dynorphin's kind of like the opposite of endorphins. It makes you feel pretty low.
I wouldn't drink for a whole month and I'll be, oh, you know what, I'm meeting up so-and-so, I'll have a glass of champagne, I'll have one drink. And I've noticed
they've proven that just a month off of alcohol can actually reduce your liver fat by about 20%, which is
I'm not going to go to those drinks because, I'm going to not drink and I'm going to be worried about what people are going to say. And I'd rather not put myself in that situation. There's an anxiety that comes over you when it comes to socializing. For example, celebration. Anytime there's a celebration, it's almost automatic.
And talk about just alcohol generally in our lives, as just a mainstream phenomenon. Like, what about the average normal drinker, right? And that's kind of where my work really comes in. I work with women who really are starting to ask themselves if their drinking habit is serving them in their lives. And it doesn't have to be this extreme heavy drinking habit. It's just asking yourself, is this really making me happy at this point? Is this really helping me achieve my goals? Is it helping my health? Is it helping my relationships, And I come in with this very personal growth oriented approach to help them determine how is alcohol allowing or not allowing them align with their values, achieve their bigger goals. And I really frame it in this sense of curiosity. How can we take this not as something you have to quit forever or anything like that, but how can we really just be curious and start experimenting with a different lifestyle? Because the thing is that most of us start drinking when we're teenagers, maybe in college, and then it's a habit we have for the rest of our lives. So honestly, most adults don't even know what it feels like to go take a break from alcohol and take a really, extended break. And we can talk a little bit further on the podcast, but some incredible things happen in your body, happen to your energy, happen to your sleep, but also happen to your mental landscape. And kind of this belief starts, churning up within you that, if you could do this, what else could you do? And it starts really becoming this confidence that spills over into other areas of people's lives. So I'm just super passionate about bringing more awareness to this, and not as a prohibitionist or something, but let's get a little curious about the role of alcohol in our lives.
Yeah, I think everyone has probably had a moment in their lives where they've said, oh, I'm going to give up alcohol. And I think people say that because they know deep down inside that there are probably better things on the other side of that, but the actual doing it and the sticking with it is the tough part. And I'm sure you've come across that in the work that you do. What I'm curious about is, how did you arrive at this? How did you arrive at this? And I've listened to your podcast, I watch some of your Instagram posts. It's clearly something you're very passionate about, and you can almost call it your purpose. I mean, and this is something that everyone's searching for. It's a buzzword at the moment, but I'm curious, how did you come across this, and how did this sort of become a major part of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's my own transformation that spurred it, and I was living in this camp for years of basically I'll say I drank a lot when I was in college and grad school. I was partying. I had very little boundaries around alcohol. It was just a free for all. But as I got older, as I, matured in my later 20s, I really tried to keep it all balanced. I tried really hard to drink less, to not go out as often, to have limits, have rules. I really strive to be a healthy and mindful person. I ate pretty well. I drank my green juice. I went to yoga classes. I meditated. And so basically I was building this very holistically healthy lifestyle. And there was this big fat incongruency. And it was, I drank every weekend. I would go to sushi night, dinner night, game night, you name it. Very normal drinking occasions, Netflix at home. And yet every single weekend, it was just this thing that happened, on repeat. And every Monday morning, I woke up feeling so crappy, so depressed. Just everything I did that was healthy during the week was completely washed away by the weekend, And I was living in this loop for years. And my entire mind frame at that point was well, I must not have figured out the equation right. I must be drinking too much. So I'd play with the equations, and I'd have these rules no more than 2 drinks, or no IPAs, or not this type of wine. I was just trying to figure out, not necessarily because I was having, a liter of vodka at home by myself, but more of no matter what I try, I'm not feeling okay. It's not working, And I was so confused and frustrated because I would go to a party and, drink a similar amount to other people. And the next day I felt horrible. And I never heard anyone else, I didn't hear them saying they had a headache or anything like that. So I personally believe maybe I'm just like maybe I just can't process alcohol very well. Like I had no idea, I just, if this was such a common thing that was happening to everyone, why wasn't I hearing about it? And the thing is, as I was silently going through this, the only thing I did hear about alcohol was a lot of the resources and the language and the kind of framework that we talk about it when someone is really, really severely addicted to alcohol and drinking, uncontrollably, like the AA stories, the rock bottom stories, the DUIs, all that kind of stuff. And as much as I knew I wanted to change, I felt like, well, if I change, all of a sudden I'm going to be lumped into that bucket and I'm going to get a stigma. I'm going to get a label. I'm going to have to go to AA meetings, So there was this part of me that was just fighting it so hard, And what I didn't realize for a long time is I really needed someone to give me permission, because like, it's so interesting when you have like a mindset shift or an epiphany. You think the world functions in one way, or you have a certain belief about the way things are. And all of a sudden, you have this epiphany or a mindset shift or a guide that shares something different with you. And you start to see, like, oh, wait, like there's a whole other way to see the world. And so I kind of was shocked into that epiphany when I heard actually of this moderate drinker who wrote, there was an article featuring her in like a women's health magazine. And she called herself a moderate drinker. And I was like, okay, great, because I've already read the stories about this quote unquote alcoholics, and those like really weren't resonating with me. But the moderate drinker said she tried this thing called dry January. And she felt so good during that month that she decided not to go back to alcohol. And there was something that like clicked in me. There was that mindset shift. It was that permission I was waiting for. Like, oh, wait a minute. Normal people can also do this? Like normal people can reevaluate the role of alcohol in their lives. And I don't want to like paint the wrong picture here. Like I definitely overdrink sometimes. I had a very complicated relationship with alcohol to be drinking so habitually every weekend. But all in all, I just still didn't find myself, fitting into that camp that didn't want to fit into. And so when I heard that woman's story, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do dry January. And, it's a big health campaign in the UK. It was just kind of starting to get big in the US when I did it. And it was just such an amazing month for me. I finally had the permission to take that break from alcohol that I've been wanting to take for years. But to me, it was always, there was a social event. There was, something that required me drinking at the end of the week that made me feel like I wasn't allowed to do it. At the end of the month, I felt really great, but I kind of still was caught in that old mind frame of like, well, normal adults drink. It's just the way the world works, right? And so I went back to drinking in February, but the like contrast of it was so stark to me. My sleep was horrible, even after just like one or two. I found myself like my mood was so good when I wasn't drinking. I was really appreciative. I was feeling gratitude. I felt more wonder, like just looking around at like nature. And the moment I would have a drink, I got cranky, frustrated. Like it just completely lowered my mood so fast that I really noticed it. And I came to this conclusion, like drinking actually kind of sucks. Like this is not what I thought it was. Wasn't this like good time that I had been, thinking about it for so many years. And so I decided to take another break at that point at the end of February. And my break turned into basically till today. And the most incredible miracles happened in my life during that time. Not only did I regain so much energy, I slept like a baby. I started looking better. My face, my internal organs started healing. I lost 51 points off my cholesterol during that time. I lost weight, but something even cooler than the physical benefits was really the mental things. I started challenging myself because I think drinking can be such a comfort zone behavior. And because I was getting out of my comfort zone in one way, I started to ask myself, well, what else do I really want to do in life that's been scaring me? And I've been, kind of pressing pause on that now I have more confidence to achieve. So within that first year, I launched my business. I launched a podcast. I ran a half marathon. I eventually left my day job. I wrote my book. Like just all this stuff happened like almost, again, in just 1 year, a night and day difference between who I was and who I, became. And from that moment on, I was like, I need to share this with people. Like this transformation, it's not just the physical benefits. This is like a huge identity shift where literally anything can become possible for you. And I know how stuck I was before by thinking like, well, only those type of people, we like to other people, only those type of people give up drinking. And so I just want to bring this conversation more into mainstream society, because if I felt like that, I'm sure a lot of other people feel like that as well. And I really think taking a break from alcohol is a huge gift. And you don't have to do all or nothing. It's kind of like an experiment.
There's so much you said there that resonates. And I think, one of the things that a lot of people do struggle with is, and you've kind of alluded to this in what you were just saying there, is this preconceived idea of what we have about, the way life should be and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. And, you touched on the extreme end of alcohol abuse, which of course is a very serious, problem, which needs to be addressed. But then it's like, well, if I'm not there, because, society deems that as that's bad. Anything before that stage, it's acceptable, right? So, and people and everyone can be honest, or most people can be honest, say, yeah, I'm not there, I'm okay. And where's, it's difficult. Where's the fine line? But it doesn't have to be a fine line. People say, well, I'm okay, but why does it have to be you're either an alcoholic or you're not? There's got to be another area there where you have and this, I guess is how you're putting it, you have an uncomfortable relationship with alcohol where it's, taking over your life. And I, for one, can resonate because, when I first started my working life, it was, I put on a suit, I went to the city, it was with the bankers and the tech IT people, and what you do after work. And I was a teenager, so I was still very impressionable at this time. So I was like, oh, okay, well, everyone's going for a drink after work. That's what you do. And I wasn't really a big drinker. I was into sports, and it's like, okay, but to fit in, that's what I did. I thought, well, I'll join the lads and we'll do that. And then you get to a point, like you said, where you just every week, every night, it's just repetitive behavior. And then if you don't, and if you want to sort of step back from that, it's like you're not accepted in that identity or that circle. It's like, oh, what's wrong with him? So I think then it just becomes, well, I need to now do this. Otherwise I'm not going to have my social life. I'm not going to have my social relationships. And it starts to take over. Right. And I think this is where what you're doing is just raising awareness to say, hey, it's okay. If you feel that way, then let's help you get there, because like you said, magical things happen on the other side of it. And you're living proof of that.
Oh, I love how you just said that. It's such a great way of saying it, because honestly, I think that's the way we've been kind of taught to deal with this. It's like, do I have a problem or not? Right? You have to answer yes or no. And it's an enigma, like a problem compared to who, you know what I mean? Like, for example, right now I'm taking a break from watching TV. It's all like, it's another thing that can take up a lot of time and be really mindless. And do I watch more TV than the average American? No. But do I want to watch as much TV as the average American? Like, it's like 4 hours a day here in America. So it's like, yeah. And everything I look up about like how, taking a break from TV or stuff, all of a sudden it's like TV addiction. And then I'm like, okay, geez, what about just someone who's actually recognizing, what, this habit isn't serving me in my life? And it doesn't have to be so extreme to be able to get to that point. So instead of asking, is this a problem? I like to ask, does this make me happy? And the thing with drinking is that, it's one of those dopamine manipulators. It's one of those like things that causes a huge rush, a huge spike in our brain. But because of the way our brain's wired, it actually causes a huge crash afterwards. So our brain is at this lower level after drinking than before drinking, right? And that can actually last a few days, if not weeks. In addition to that, alcohol induces a lot of the release of stress hormones in our body. So we release cortisol, adrenaline, and dynorphin when we drink. Dynorphin's kind of like the opposite of endorphins. It makes you feel pretty low. And so I never knew all this stuff, but I knew how low I felt on Monday morning, and it wasn't just looking at it and evaluating it, is the 20 minutes making me happy? It's like, is the whole 48-hour experience, is the whole gamut, is the whole thing really truly serving me and making me happy? And that's when I realized, like, no, like most of my mental anguish, internal stress, recrimination, rumination, chastising myself, mental gymnastics, all of it revolved around drinking. Will I drink tonight? Will I not? Don't I have a presentation tomorrow? But I'm invited out with coworkers. It would be weird if I don't have one. Like this monkey talk, it's like crazy, and it takes up so much space.
I mean, so many occasions I've been, I've done the dry January, I've done the sober October, and but the carrot at the end of it has always been, oh, but I get to drink again. It's okay. I've done it, and I've had this struggle to try and remove myself from that identity of wanting to drink. I wanted to give up drinking for a long time, and again, I don't I don't drink anywhere near what the average person here in the UK drinks. I mean, I don't know how you calculate in the UK, but we have a units. Do you do units? Yeah. So we have 14
We
units
don't
a
do it
week.
as well, but I'm familiar. Yeah.
You're familiar with the unit. Yeah. So we have 14 units a week, which is a glass of wine a day. Now, I wasn't having anywhere near that, but it was like you said, and it came in a very similar way to you, where I was at when I actually stopped drinking it for a while and reintroduced it. I started noticing the difference. And for me, the epiphany was my sleep. When I started noticing that, and I was starting taking more attention and paying more attention to my sleep and my sleep hygiene and trying to fix that. And it was the alcohol. And I was like, right, okay, well, if this is the one thing, and you know what, it would just be one drink. I wouldn't drink for a whole month, and I'll be, oh, you know what, I'm meeting up so-and-so, I'll have a glass of champagne. I'll have one drink, and I'd notice it. And that to me just told me that this is something that doesn't serve me. This is something I want to remove from my life. But it's been a struggle to get there. And you do, and like I said again, it's that social pressure as well. And I feel like there needs to be a shift in society. There needs to be a shift in the way of thinking. In that, for example, celebration. Anytime there's a celebration, it's almost automatic that it's alcohol. Right, we bought a house this year, and even in my mind when I wasn't drinking, I was like, oh, I can't open a bottle of champagne to celebrate our new house move, and that was like a disappointment. I'm like, hold a minute, I just bought a house. What's opening a bottle of champagne got to do with making that good, great, or not? But that was what my framing was. That was what my mind told me, and I think. And if someone announces news, even via text, I'll send an emoji. If someone's birthday, I'll send a champagne emoji. It's just an automatic reaction. So I think that there's a shift that definitely needs to take place there for a lot of people. But I think what the big thing is, as you mentioned, that epiphany and when you notice those changes, and for you, there's a number that you made there. So I want to get into what does actually happen to someone. What are the benefits of giving up alcohol at this level? Can you talk a bit more about that?
Absolutely. And I do have a book coming out called Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. I have it right here. And so I did a lot of research for this book. It's a lot of my personal experience, anecdotal experience, but then a lot of peer-reviewed health studies, that they've also been doing around this very topic. So I include a lot of that in here, but the physical benefits honestly really just astound me. So like you're spot on with the sleep. And that's what the crazy thing is like, obviously when you overdrink, nobody feels well after over drinking. Like that's an obvious kind of thing, but it's this deeper level of perception to recognize like even one or two can make you feel like pretty crappy. And sometimes looking back into what the science is behind that can be really enlightening, because for a long time I was like, is there something wrong with my body? Like what's going on? Like I had no idea, but alcohol, a lot of people actually use it to help them fall asleep misguidedly, because what it does is it sedates you into sleep, and it sedates you into what's called slow wave sleep. And slow wave sleep, we have like our cycles of sleep that are about 90 minutes, and slow wave sleep is then balanced out with REM sleep. REM sleep is when we process memories and just do a lot of like healing in the brain. And so we have these cycles every night, about 5 to 6, for a normal human being. But what alcohol does is that it reduces our ability to hit that REM sleep. So it's like you're in slow wave sleep for the first half of the night. And oftentimes people do fall asleep after drinking, and they'll sleep until like 1 or 2 or 3. And then it's a wake up call, or it's like a fragmented sleep. It's lighter. It gets kind of, not as deep. And so then the REM sleep that's supposed to be happening at that time isn't. So you're either waking up or you're just not getting that REM sleep at all. So studies have proven that it can reduce your REM sleep cycles down to 1. So from like 5 to 6 that you need to 1. And so basically you could be clocking in those 8 hours. You could be sleeping the whole night and you're not getting that nourishing REM sleep that your body needs to function. And, we're still always learning so much more about the brain and sleep, but there have been studies where they have deprived mice of REM sleep and they all died. It's critical to us. So oftentimes, people who are drinking regularly, like they feel tired, lethargic, exhausted, they're sleeping enough, but it's not that quality sleep that you need. And it is just that one drink, so it often takes a few weeks to rebalance. I like to tell my clients that, because their circadian rhythm and all just the effects of alcohol, it takes a while to rebalance. But going alcohol-free will give you the most yummy, delicious, like nourishing sleep you've ever had. It rarely takes me longer than 5 minutes to fall asleep. I sleep the whole night, it's super deep. I remember my dreams. It's just an incredible night and day experience. So on the sleep, that's really incredible. Next thing that really happens with your body is a lot of the internal organs are healing, and the cells on a molecular level are healing. So we often forget that alcohol is made up of ethanol, and ethanol is the same ethanol that is used when we put fuel in our car. It's the same ethanol in rocket fuel. It's the same ethanol that we put in paint thinner. It's the same ethanol in hand sanitizer. Like, it is a very, very toxic chemical substance, and we drink that. We drink it. And so our body takes a huge toll to be able to detoxify that alcohol, that ethanol. And so it's like our body's working overtime to do that. And it affects all our different systems in very variative ways. I don't really like to focus on like, here are the harms. I like to show, well, here are the benefits of going alcohol free. So alcohol like raises both our cholesterol and our blood pressure, which is not often really talked about. There's millions of people today on medication to try to lower those numbers. But right after, even 2 weeks off alcohol should lower your blood pressure numbers, and then blood cholesterol as well. Studies proven that only 1 month off of alcohol lowers the average participant's cholesterol by 20 points. Now, personally, mine dropped 51 points, and I tested a little longer, a few more months than that, but 51 points, like, that's insane. I had high cholesterol, like, ever since I started getting tested, and I think it's a different system in the UK, but, I'm a young woman, I'm fairly fit and thin. Like, there was no reason why I should have that high cholesterol, and I tried all these different things, I tried different diets, nothing was really working. And then it was just removing alcohol that it dropped 51 points. So the next place that a lot of drinkers might worry about is the liver and the liver health. And the things that doctors have seen a lot over the last 20 years, especially as, craft brewery culture has spiked, mommy juice culture has spiked, is a lot of people are coming in with liver issues at much lower level drinking levels than ever before, right? And so that is often kind of a myth that you have to be a very heavy drinker to affect your liver. But fortunately, they've proven that just a month off of alcohol can actually reduce your liver fat by about 20%, which is crazy because that's actually like how you heal the prelude to liver damage. And they've even said like up to 6 months to a year without alcohol, you start to get the same liver as someone who never drank at all. So our body's like a miracle at healing. And there's some really good tips that, someone can use, especially following, from their doctor, healthcare practitioner, along with some other good things like green tea or hibiscus tea, things like that. And then lastly, our brain. So there's been studies that show that a non-drinker versus someone who drinks even less than 7 drinks a week, that the non-drinker has a bigger brain than them, And again, this stuff is just crazy. I had no idea. And it also can lead to dementia and Alzheimer's. But within just 2 weeks of off alcohol, your gray matter in your brain grows and the neurons regenerate in your brain. They've proven that to a year without alcohol, the brain grows back to the same level it was before, like as a pre-drinker. And then something really crazy happens after a year. Your brain actually grows more than someone who never struggled with this at all, because basically you get better at self-control. You become more adept, you're more resilient. You have new like coping tools under your belt, basically, than someone who never struggled. So it's just really cool to see all the physical benefits that can happen. And a lot of them happen within just 1 month. I like to joke around, like, imagine if a pharmaceutical could bottle all these benefits and sell it in a pill. It would make them billions of dollars. You know what I mean? And we all have this at our disposal. Anyone who's suffering from chronic health issues or just a little concerned about their blood cholesterol, like most of us are, or, blood pressure, or anything like that, glucose levels, all those kinds of things can really be solved with a break from alcohol.
It just fascinates me and how amazing the human body is. I mean, this is something that I know studying physiology and understanding this, but when you hear about things like this and you hear about new research coming out, and you just, like you said, in 1 month, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And, how the body can then even bounce back. It could have been years of, I don't want to use the word abuse, but years of, putting that toxin, that poison in there. But yet it's still, you just remove it for a month and your body will start to heal itself. And it's just phenomenal. And, I work on a diabetes prevention program here as a coach. And, we prevent people from getting type 2 diabetes. And it's all about, the same thing. It's, hey, if you can just stop doing certain things or just minimizing certain things in some cases, you don't have to stop doing them. Your blood glucose comes down, your weight comes down, your cholesterol, all of these things. And we talk about alcohol, and some of the things you mentioned there are absolutely very much part of that. But it is amazing. And I think the more people can bring this into their consciousness and their awareness and start to, experience it. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? You have to kind of, in order to change and, and force or make behavior change be permanent, there's got to be an emotional connection there. It's like, oh, wow, okay, I'm sleeping better. Oh, wow, you mentioned earlier, my skin's better, or this is better, and this condition cleared up, all because I stopped drinking alcohol. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about sharing messages like this, and I'm very, very happy to see the people out there like yourself who are, championing this and saying, look, we can do something about this. And like I said, it's all at your fingertips. So that's phenomenal. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think, like culture is changing. Like you bring up a good point of like, even the celebration thing, we've been so conditioned to, think that alcohol is the key. Even the celebration thing, we've been so conditioned to, think that alcohol is the key to connection, to celebration, to, just so many different things, and key to connection, to celebration, to, just so many different things. And it's this funny like socialization that we've all gone through because we all live in this society. And sometimes I like to think about like what it must have been like to grow up when cigarettes were really like big in the heyday. And that was like the way that you the same way you proved independence, that you were sophisticated. All these status symbols are attached to alcohol in a very much the similar way. And what ends up happening over time is that we actually get these very deep-seated belief that alcohol helps us achieve a state we think we can't achieve on our own. Like I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel celebratory. I want to feel socially confident. I want to feel, any number of things. And both by like the repetition of using alcohol to try to achieve that, but also all of this conditioning we're getting from society that basically marries those things, we then come to believe that that's the way, that's the ticket to glamour, significance, sophistication, celebration. And so part of the thing I do with my clients is, you mentioned that sometimes just removing the alcohol, it's amazing, right? But that's a big habit change. It's a big behavior change. But then what's left is still that mindset that deep down has these subconscious associations or subconscious desires for it. And that's kind of like the secret sauce of really losing your desires for alcohol, is kind of peeling back the layers and saying like, where am I holding these kinds of beliefs? What are they even? Most people don't even know what they are, and how can I actually prove to myself they're not true? It's kind of that cool process of like, debunking self-limiting beliefs. For example, most people think alcohol relaxes them, and that's why they drink at the end of a long day or a work day or whatever. I shared earlier, alcohol actually increases anxiety in your body, and it increases the release of cortisol and adrenaline. Like the relaxation you think you get is like your brain actually getting numbed and slowed down. It's not really relaxing your body physically. It's actually really stressing it out. And so sometimes even just knowing the science can be like, oh, wait, so I think it relaxes me, but maybe I need to stop and question that. Like how do I feel a few hours later? How do I feel the next day? And really starting to make a new meaning for yourself. And once you can arrive at a new meaning, like, oh, alcohol really, like to me, you couldn't pay me to drink alcohol. Like I have this association with it, with all this, like, I know my body won't feel good. I know it will like increase the tension and the edge I feel in my body on this molecular level. Like I don't desire that feeling whatsoever. But there are also like deeper psychological ones too, like I'm an introvert myself. I grew up very shy and I started drinking as a teenager. And when I started drinking, it was like, ooh, this is the key to my extroverted self. This is how I can be, interesting and charming and popular. And then I carried that association that drinking helps me be more confident for a whole decade. And basically, I had never, ever trained myself to learn how to develop that confidence within myself without this crutch that I was leaning on. I mean, literally, I never practiced socializing without alcohol. And it's not something that you're born with. Like it's a muscle. It's a muscle that needs to be worked out, right? And so as long as I was outsourcing my confidence to alcohol, I wasn't building it within myself. I wasn't growing myself to overcome that insecurity. And I was constantly telling my subconscious, you are not enough on your own. You're not interesting. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody likes you. You have to drink in order to be all those things. How deeply disempowering is that? Obviously, I had no idea this was behind the kind of curtain when I was like exploring and when I was, first taking a break and thinking about all this. It's kind of the deeper layers I got to eventually. And I was like, wow, like for so long, I believed alcohol made me confident, but the real thing it made me is insecure. I mean, first of all, I was worried, did I have wine teeth? Did I say something dumb? Like, did someone notice I got another glass? Like all of it just made me so insecure, honestly. And that continually outsourcing my confidence to something like an inanimate beverage, you can't find those kinds of things outside of you. You have to develop them within yourself. I realized, you know what? The story isn't alcohol makes me confident. That's like a false belief. That's a disempowering thing the alcohol industry wants me to believe. I need to develop that within myself. Alcohol actually makes me insecure. Now, let me go on this personal growth journey to find that confidence within myself. Boy, is it rewarding. Imagine like public speaking. Like nobody just is a natural at it. Everyone's a little scared of it. But then there's people who do it for their career and they start practicing it and practicing it and practicing it. And then they do it, on a weekly basis or whatever. And it stops having that kind of fear over them. It starts to become a normal part of their lives. It's kind of the same thing. It's the similar analogy. Like I had to learn how to get out of my shell and find comfort within my own skin instead of looking for something else. And so that's kind of like another way, to change the mindset. And the thing is when I work with a client, often there'll be like 10 core reasons like that. So I just share 2 of them, but there's like 10 core ones underneath the relationship with alcohol. And if you go and peel the layer back and resolve each one and kind of debunk each one and find your new meaning, a new kind of neuroassociative belief, what it often does is it chips away at the desire for alcohol. Because no longer does the subconscious believe that alcohol brings me these benefits. It usually believes the opposite now, and that's the thing is like consciously, most people do want to drink less or not at all, but it's that subconscious, the desire that's rooted in those like meanings, like you said, buy a house, pop champagne, right? Those are so deep. Those go back years. I mean, those go back even before you started drinking. That goes to the culture you grew up in, to the TV commercials you saw. Like that stuff is deep. But it's really fun to be able to like pinpoint and be like, oh, and figure out how to unravel that belief. Because when there is no, if you don't believe it gives you benefits in that subconscious level, the desire goes away. And so today, like, I don't have any cravings for alcohol. I feel lucky to be a non-drinker. Like you couldn't pay me to drink it because I worked through kind of all those beliefs, which is something that, I highly recommend for anyone. And it's a process I outline in my book as well.
Yeah, you've talked about, having alcohol as that crutch and it's, I love the phrase outsourcing your confidence to alcohol, because that's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's people saying, well, I can't enjoy myself, or I can't be the person that other people expect me to be. We're now starting to think about what other people want, and we're trying to act up to other people. So I need to drink in order to become more confident at a party, or maybe I'm an introvert and it's the only way I can socialize. And it's then we start to associate with the identity of the person who drinks alcohol, almost like it's outside of us. And on some level, that's exactly what we start looking at. And I surely can't be myself. Or if you've and I've had this thought before, and I've been on a spell of not trying to drink. It's like I'm not going to go to those drinks because I'm going to not drink and I'm going to be worried about what people are going to say. And I'd rather not put myself in that situation. There's an anxiety that comes over you when it comes to socializing. And that can be very difficult for a lot of people to overcome because, like you said, those habits have been ingrained in you so deep that trying to peel away at that, it can be tough. And I like the way you say, just trying to look at peeling away the layers. For me, like I said, it was that epiphany of the sleep, and even after that, it's still been a journey. And it's only for me, I gave up for good in August this year. So it's been September, October, it's been a couple of months, not even.
Incredible.
And I finally got to the stage where I'm actually looking forward almost to going to social events and being this new and identifying with the person. I don't drink. It's not anymore. I'm not going to have one because I'm trying to give up, or I'm not drinking at the moment. So when I'm saying I'm not drinking at the moment, or I'm trying to give up, that in my mind now I see that's someone who still identifies with drinking. Yeah. Whereas now I'm saying I don't drink. That's it. So now I'm identifying with someone who doesn't drink, and I'm very confident with that. And I'm very, and again, I've gone through this process of change and, discovery and self-discovery to get to the point where I'm comfortable with being that person. I'm comfortable with not worrying about what is other people going to say. Because at the end of the day, if I'm with a group of people that I really love or are close to me, they're going to understand. And, there's going to be a point where if they don't, then to be honest, I don't care. It's so meaningful, my health and my wellness, the wellness of my family. And for me, that's the other thing, knowing what I'm like when I've had a little bit to drink, it doesn't have to be a lot, and how I'm around my wife, how I'm around my kids the next day, the following day. It used to, the jokes now become that when we go out to drink, it's a 48-hour hangover. As you get older, it gets longer and longer. And that's something I've noticed as well. Definitely I don't know the science behind it. There's probably some truth there. So for me, it's just getting to that point of confidence and saying, no, I want to be this person who doesn't drink. And now I'm going to act like the person who doesn't drink. And that's what's helped me. But I totally get it can be very hard for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And I love that identity shift that you've created, because it's an aspirational thing. And I think that's like what really this new alcohol-free movement is trying to do. It's not about, like the old school recovery and addiction model. And obviously that's very helpful for certain people that find themselves in that boat. But it's really starting to question, like, well, since when did we absorb this idea that all adults drink and that it's a normal part of our society? Let's question that a little bit. Maybe it's the trailblazers, the leaders, the inspirers, the role models who are starting to say differently. And I like to look at, like, successful people on our planet, like Tony Robbins, David Beckham, Brene Brown, Gabby Bernstein, Deepak Chopra. Like, they're all non-drinkers. Either they quit drinking or they didn't drink. I'm like, those are the people I look up to, right? And those are the people who are proving, like, Tony Robbins goes to like a dinner party. You think anyone's giving him like flack for not drinking? Like, no way, right? He's like, okay, he's way too powerful to be, like talked down to in that way. And it's such a status symbol for him to be a non-drinker, I think. And it really can help, see yourself that way, of this like new tribe of people. And a really cool thing to remember too is, like, when you're socializing, these are studies done in the U.S., but I'm sure it's pretty similar. So they found that over 60% of drinkers overdrink way above the health guidelines, like not just a little bit above, but a lot above, right? And then they've also found that around 52% of Americans want to drink less or not at all. Okay, taking those two facts, what does that tell me when I go socialize? Half the people in this room wish they also weren't drinking.
Wow.
Deep down, that's what they really wish, but maybe they don't have the bravery to do it yet. They don't have the guides, the tools, the intuition, whatever it is. Half the people in this room wish they weren't drinking, And so at that point, when you think of it that way, it stops being so much about you and what they think about you. And obviously, we're all scared that people will make up stories in their minds about us, And it starts to be more of like, who knows who I'm inspiring here today? Who knows who needed to see me come to this event and not drink to be able to, make the decision themselves. And I often find that people often have three reactions. So the first is like, they don't care. They don't notice. It's not a big thing on their mind, It's a drink at the end of the day. I mean, imagine if we were so hyper-focused on what people ate. Like, did you have the wings? Did you have the salad? It's crazy. We're talking about an inanimate beverage here at the end of the day, right? It doesn't matter what's in your cup. So there's a portion of people who just won't care because it doesn't matter. It's just a drink. And then there's a portion of people who might be a little curious about it, and they might be asking you questions and trying to kind of like get to know your story. And while that might feel like vulnerable or just, like, I don't know if I want to talk about this yet, they're often asking for their own benefit. They're often asking because they're curious about something like this too. And just like I needed that role model in the magazine to show me like that this is a path, they're trying to find if they can relate themselves into your story to see if this is a path for themselves too. And then the last group of people will care, and they will, feel often threatened by it. And they will be like, come on, like either cajole you to want to drink, or they might tell you how much they don't have a problem with alcohol. Or it's just these people who you can tell it's a red flag. They're probably insecure about their own drinking. They don't feel secure drinking alone. Who wants to drink alone? And when you're a drinker, that kind of is going down to a deeper level of insecurity. It's like, do I have to drink? Why do I have to drink? Why am I feeling like the one who needs to drink here? And so those people often are reacting because you're holding up a mirror to their behavior, and they might have also be in that camp where they don't want to be drinking, but they don't have the emotional maturity yet to say that to themselves, So when you look at it that way, honestly, like you are a wolf among sheep. And that's an amazing thing, like you're a trailblazer, you're at the forward of the bell curve. I believe that the way we consume and view alcohol in our society is going to have a huge change, the same way that cigarettes did. And basically anyone here who's already alcohol free or questioning it or, open to this conversation is way ahead of the masses.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And finding those role models, I think, which you talked about, is so important because, as you said, it's like we associate everything good with drinking, and like I said, it's the TV adverts, it's a cultural thing. I mean, for me, I got to, because my parents don't drink. They're Hindus. They drink. They're vegetarians, and I grew up with that. However, they came to the UK, and I'm the first generation who was born in this country. So I had this identity crisis. It's like, well, mum and dad don't drink or eat meat, but everybody else is doing it. So we must be the weird ones, right? We must be for me to fit into school and friends and growing up as a teenager, hiding behind the bike sheds and drinking cider, that's what I had to do. And it was almost, well, yeah, that must be the right way. And when you actually discover that there's a whole new world out there of people, and some of the names you mentioned are phenomenal. And again, that for me recently has been, well, if I want to follow my dreams and pursue my passions and work on things that are meaningful to me, alcohol doesn't serve me. And here's proof again of these wonderful people who are doing this. And I think that's such an important part of it for people to bridge that gap from, wanting to do something and having a need and a reason and that motivation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it really brings to that point, like, the drinking that we've done in our past, like we did it, yes, definitely, to prove independence, to fit in, to be a rebel, to try to be an adult. Like that's how we often come into a relationship with alcohol. But we are not like that 16-year-old version of ourselves anymore. And we don't have to vilify them. They were just doing what they needed to survive and, to get all the social status that they needed to at that point. But like now as a 34-year-old woman, like that's laughable. Like I don't need to drink a beverage to fit in with a group of people. To me, it doesn't compute. And so it's kind of like stopping yourself and saying the things that needed to happen before or that worked before or were part of kind of like the social code before, do they still apply for me in my life now? Like am I still that introverted or teen that's just looking for acceptance, or am I a grown adult now who can make my own decisions? And sometimes we have to re-ask ourselves, because I often find most people have just an outdated relationship with alcohol. They formed it a long time ago and they just haven't revisited it. And it becomes really an unconscious habit. So these are like really cool questions to be asking yourself. Like, I can see why it served a purpose then, but now, like your well-being is so much more important than fitting in now. And if anything, you're like creating this new standard, this new status club of excellence, right? And then people aspire to your level. So you're the one who's wants people to fit in with you, not the other way around,
Yeah, I mean, if you're the person in your friend circle, in your sphere of influence, who makes that brave step and is bold and makes the change, and then you start reaping the rewards, and everyone starts to see that, and they're like, "Hold on a minute, what's he on?" I'm like, "Well, the answer is I'm not on anything," and that that's the truth. So, and then you might, it's a domino effect almost. So you can be that change maker, and I think that is massive, and it's very clear to me that the shift and all the work you're doing and the awareness you're trying to raise is there is a movement behind that. I mean, I just remember the other day, just by chance, catching a documentary about Guinness. They're making they've made an alcohol-free drink, and you just look at the number of alcohol-free drinks that are available on the market now. It's almost reminding me of what's happening with like the plant-based movement, in that there are so many people that may perhaps want to go plant-based, but they don't want to give up cheese or they don't want to give up burgers. And now we see all these products in the supermarket, whether they're good for you or not, that's a completely different conversation, which is another podcast in itself. But there's these stepping stones, tools that people have to say, okay, well, if you want to eat meat, well, we'll create something that's not made from animals that tastes like meat. And it's the same with alcohol. We'll create a drink that you can enjoy in a social environment, so you don't feel like, oh, I can't go to the social environment. And like I said, now I'm excited to see, well, let me see if they've got any cool non-alcoholic drinks that I can try. Now, I want to disassociate myself completely with the link between I must have a drink that's like alcohol, and this is the problem I have with some vegan foods. I see vegan bacon. I'm like, well, if you want to eat bacon, I get the stepping stone, but at some point you want to just let go of that. So, but it's a great way for me to, a great avenue for me to go down, and then, continue this journey, because it's not just one day I wake up and that's it, you're free from all of that. This is something, like you said, you got to peel away the layers.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the explosion of all the alcohol-free drinks, and there are so many meanings that we put onto a drink in society, like even just like wanting a treat, wanting this something special, wanting something nice, we do that with food, we do that with drinks all the time. And like you can still get all those same rewards. And they've proven there's like placebo effects. Like it's so interesting for me to think that like as it stands right now, to have a social life, it comes with a side of hangovers. Like that's what we've all accepted as adults. We have a social life, we have this liquid beverage we all drink, and then we all accept we get hangovers from it. From a purely like objective level, like really zooming back, it's kind of crazy. Like someone would just be like, why not replace the drink with something that doesn't give you the hangover? And so now there's so many cool alcohol-free beers, wines, spirits, but also just like completely new concoctions, that have nothing to do with like the flavor of alcohol. And I think more pubs, like the most forward-thinking ones, have these options. I think the UK and Europe is way ahead than America, but we're catching up too. We get mocktail bars, we get cool, like even sober rays are kind of becoming a thing now. We have an alcohol-free brewery down from my house, a tasting room. So I think culture is changing. And, like that's really similar to the plant-based thing, because I think, if someone cares about either the ethical implication, the environmental implication, or the health implication, whatever their kind of value ladder like lands on, they might feel, that they want to be plant-based or that they don't want to eat meat. But what makes that challenging is the implementation. And if it was available everywhere, all options, all the time, if you went to a restaurant and they had really great dishes for you, and it wasn't just like a salad with vinaigrette, like you actually had the options make us want to be able to, pursue these healthy lifestyle choices. And imagine if these options were everywhere. So it doesn't matter if I'm in Mexico or Poland or in the US, I always have these options. I could totally see myself being 100% plant-based, right? But like as it stands today, it's a little harder because you don't have all those options. So I think really similarly, it's happening with alcohol. You go somewhere with your friends and everything on the drink list is alcoholic, and you're like, okay, I'll have a tap water. Like, that doesn't sound fun. So it's a really similar thing. And you can get a placebo effect, I think, from even something like coconut water, something very like, non even resembling alcohol at all, but it just meets that need to have something a little bit more special than water, and it's an excellent tool to use. I definitely recommend them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, it excites me now to see what can I find. And yeah, you're absolutely right. You look at a menu and I remember looking for, when I was younger, looking for vegetarian options back in the day. There was, it's nothing. There's a salad or there's, some bread, and it's the same with alcohol. And yeah, we've got lots of sober bars or alcohol-free bars here that are popping up more and more, and you can still go there and, like you said, just treat yourself and feel like you are getting something special. So I think that's a fantastic tool to use for sure. Tell us a bit more about your book, Karolina. What can someone expect if they pick it up, and guess what's the purpose there?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So it's called Euphoric Dish Alcohol. I'm going to Happier, More Confident You. Just showing it off again one more time. And you can find it at euphoricbook.com. And basically this book is a lot of really what we've been talking about today on like why someone should take a break from alcohol. So really positioning it as this, normal, mainstream, casual, problematic, casual overdrinker, whatever labels we use. But it's not really like a lot of the books on alcohol are actually found in the addiction section in psychology. This one's going to be found in healthy living because it's a part of a healthy lifestyle. And I wanted to shift so much away from like talking about it as a problem to talking about it for everyone, if that makes sense, And so it really shows someone why they should take a break from alcohol. And it shows it in these parts called body, mind, and soul. So body is a lot of the health benefits, we shared today, plus more, a lot about how your energy regains, your well-being, how, you have more motivation to work out and get healthier. A lot of people lose weight. A lot of people, like their faces change completely. And so there's a lot of just science there. The mind part is really, when you are in a relationship with alcohol, it often ends up lowering your self-esteem over time because like you can't trust that you will abide by your intentions or your promises, like, oh, I said I wouldn't go out, but my friends are invited me, or I'll only have one, and then that always becomes a crapshoot. So alcohol often becomes like the bane of our good intentions, right? And we feel like no matter what I say, I'll do something differently. And I really just can't trust myself. I have, I felt like my self-esteem was really crumbling every Monday morning. And so, when you take a break from alcohol, not only are you getting all the physical benefits, but you're really redeveloping positive beliefs about yourself. Because think about it, like to me, self-love isn't just about liking my body or something like that. To me, I really like to think of it as taking care of future me. So today I have the foresight to take care of future me, because guess what? Future me is going to wake up tomorrow and she can either feel loved and taken care of, or she can feel disrespected and like nobody gave a shit about her, the day before. Every time I woke up after drinking, I felt like, didn't the past version of me know how I'd feel? Like, didn't she care? And today I wake up feeling loved every single morning because that past version of me like was looking out for future me. So not only redevelops your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-love, your integrity, your pride, and your confidence, it also grows your soul, because we for so long have connected alcohol with socializing and connection. And most people actually find that they can connect a lot better with people when they're alcohol free. And really, all those objections like, well, what about my partner? What about my friends? What about my family? It's actually an opportunity to redevelop relationships with them in a new way, in a different way that can often bond you into much closer relationships. So your gratitude's growing, your connections are growing. So that's kind of like the why, and then the last part of the book is the how. So it actually gives my signature framework. It's an 8-week plan for anyone to take their first 8 weeks off of alcohol. And every week, step by step, it's giving you the tools you need, the tactics you need, the strategy, but also that important mindset work I was sharing. Like, how do you peel back the layers of these strong beliefs that are, in the subconscious, and how can we change them so that at the end of the 8-week process, you're really happy. You don't have to drink, imagine that. Like I smoked cigarettes when I was in college, and today, like, again, you couldn't pay me to smoke a cigarette. Like, that's ridiculous. Am I depriving myself because I'm never smoking again? I don't think about it that way. I have no interest in smoking cigarettes. It's the smallest thing in my mind. And if it wasn't for what I do for a living, like, that's how alcohol would be. I would never think of it, I would never think of it, talk of it. It is the smallest part of my life. And imagine getting to that point, because then it's not really about, can I drink? Can I not drink? Do I have to quit forever? It's really like the habit and the craving and the internal kind of subconscious desires are gone, and you're in control and you can choose. You want to drink never again? That's great. You want to drink once a year? That's great. You want to drink once a month or something? Someone gets to decide at that point from their own intuition, not being kind of controlled by these ulterior kind of like sources. So that's the book in the nutshell. And right now, we're in the pre-launch mode, so we do have some really cool bonuses that come with anyone who pre-orders that book at euphoricbook.com. So we're giving away like 50 things to do instead of drinking checklist, because often boredom is a big reason why we drink, and not knowing like what to do with your time is a big kind of dilemma that comes up, which can be really easily solved by finding what you're more passionate about and like new hobbies. I love to share that my clients often rediscover a part of themselves, and they not only get this confidence, this energy, but they start realizing, like, what do I really want to spend my time and energy on? Like, I have one life. What do I want? What do I want more than anything in the world? What do I want so much more than a fermented beverage at the end of the night? And through this kind of introspective process, they discover something, and I've had clients who've now written books themselves. I've had clients who've launched businesses. I've had a client who quit her corporate job and moved to France, right? Because that was like a dream on her heart. And so that's the stuff that kind of comes up. And so the book not only helps you, lose those desires for alcohol, but then ask the deeper questions like, well, I have been spending all this time and energy on this. Now that I make space for that, like I remove that, now what do I really want to develop for myself? And it can be a really cool process of self-discovery. Because to me, honestly, it's not about a beverage at the end of the day. I could care less what someone drinks at the end of the day. It's not about the beverage, It's about really being awake to your life and to really take it by the helm and go after the dreams on your heart. And I think going alcohol free almost trains you to do that, because, the things we talked about, like learning to socialize without it, learning to get confident without it, learning to be brave and share it with other people, learning to put yourself first over the opinions of others, learning to go deep into your emotions instead of numbing them. Like, all of this stuff sets you up to then do the next big thing in your life. We need that bravery, that intuition, that wisdom, that creativity, that courage, it takes courage to quit a corporate job and launch a business, right? And I feel like going alcohol free is like that training that people need for that next big step. So to me, it's always so much bigger.
Yeah, it's like if I can do this, then what else can I do? There's so much more that I never thought I could, I've heard that before. I never thought I could give up alcohol. I never thought it would happen, or, I never thought I could lose weight in the work that I do. And it's like, oh, well, if I can do that, what else can I do? And I love that idea of it, it's training and certainly looking after future you. I mean, that's fantastic because, and the way, and you talk about real self-care, and this is something I coach on our program in that, the way I think about what is real self-care, and I say, look, if it's real self-care, then if you repeat that behavior over and over and over again, it's going to cause you no harm. So you can go back, I talk about it from an eating perspective. It's okay, well, I'm looking after myself Sunday because I'm having ice cream. Okay, that's great. And if it is a one-off and it's a treat, it's a real treat and it's an occasion, great. But if it's, a repeated act, you're just always treating yourself, you always think you're giving us your self-caring with ice cream, then what's going to happen if you continue doing that every time you need some self-care? Well, you're going to put on weight, you're going to increase your sugars, etc., etc. And it's the same with alcohol. So I love that idea of looking after your future self, because of course you're the only one that can do that, and you have to pull the trigger. Fantastic. I think, euphoricbook.com, people should check out the book. You've got a podcast as well. So what's the podcast about? Is it linked to this mission of yours on alcohol? It's just completely separate.
Yeah, so it's called Euphoric the Podcast, and it's basically how amazing life is without alcohol. So we have on lots of different guests that, speak that are alcohol free and speak to, other really cool ways that they've healed their life or done something really cool because of it, and it's just really changing, I think, culture. I guess I'm not young anymore, but, like younger people, we always just associate so much with the going out, and alcohol is just so ingrained in this kind of culture and lifestyle. And I just want to show people that there's like such a different way. And it's just like, it's like the Matrix, the mindset, the epiphany change I talked about earlier. Like you can believe one thing for so long and then have, your world turned around because all of a sudden a new option is laid before you or a new way of thinking of something. And I think it's the same thing with like the alcohol-free lifestyle, like you're in the Matrix, you grew up in that, but you just kind of have to unplug, and see a totally different reality. And it becomes so exciting because it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger, and it answers those questions that I think are the most important on our lives. Like, what is our purpose here? What am I supposed to do on this planet? What's my passion? And a lot of times what's really cool is that like once you go through this journey, you're now the expert. Like, I mean, you're not, you don't have a PhD, you're not like, a doctor at that level, but like you've now gone through a challenge that someone behind you hasn't gone through yet or hasn't been able to overcome themselves. And so I see like more of us stepping into the role of contributors, of giving back, as you do too, to help so many of your clients and people you work with. You have so much knowledge, so much implementation experience, so much, and now you're giving that back to the person behind you who hasn't figured that out yet. And I think that can be such a huge gift when we step into that role. And it doesn't matter whether you have a podcast yourself or you're, have a book yourself, like you can just do it with your friends, and it really fulfills us, I think, in a deeper way and a deeper meaning. So anyway, back to that. Euphoric the Podcast is just really how amazing life is without alcohol. So every week we have new episodes, from tips, tactics, strategies, and also just this deeper layer of like, how do I really become the most emboldened, expressive version of myself in my life and go after my bigger dreams? So love to share people who are doing the same.
Yeah, and I've listened to a few episodes, and I think it's fantastic. You've got some good guests on there, and it is, it's very inspiring to hear these stories. And it's certainly going to make a change. And I agree with you. It doesn't have to be on a global scale. You don't have to be Oprah to change the world. You just change. And I talk about this all the time, and people are very sick of me saying this, but I always say if one person listens to this episode of this podcast and decides to stop alcohol or change their behavior in another way, then our job's done, or my job's done for sure. I've shifted someone's belief, and they've changed their view of their own health, and that's only a positive, and that's a gift that you can always give, which is great. Thank you, Karolina, for your time, your wisdom, your passion. It's clear, it's something you're very passionate about. Go and check out the podcast, check out the book, and I look forward to hearing more about your journey and seeing the growth. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be on your show. And I'm just like so excited that you're not only open, but living like this new life to really show like this works, you know, and there's so many like objections that come up still. But I think like all of those are just a personal growth journey that we are meant to solve. And it grows us, it makes us better people, it makes us more adept. It really is so much more. It's just crazy. Like this one change often cascades so many changes in someone's lives. It really is more than just the beverage or, you know, the like one small little diet change. It's really something I think fundamental to our psyches. So if you're interested, if you're curious, like I hope that, you know, this piqued your interest, and it doesn't have to be black or white, you know, like it's just this experimentation. Like what if I took a week off? What if I took a month off, you know, and you'll never regret it. So go
Yeah,
for it.
stay curious.